Hello everyone and welcome to another tutorial video where today we are going to be looking at hero images and how you can take something like this and turn it into this. So without further ado, let's get started. So first off we're going to use this image here which I've taken with just a basic phone camera, nothing too crazy, no special lights going on, just a camera, a mannequin and a nice looking garment. So first off I'm going to unlock the background layer. By double clicking on it and pressing enter. And for the majority of this, what we have to do is cut out the product for the background. So I'm going to be using the pen tool, which you can find over here. And then I'm going to start by clicking and dragging around the product. And we're basically just going to trace our way around it. And if you're new to the pen tool, it's a great tool to get used to because you have a lot of control over the areas that you want to select. And it's relatively easy to use. What you want to do is just drag out the areas that you want, and then this will give you the selection. And for something like this you don't really have to be too accurate with your lines. You just want to get as close as you can without going over into the background, because you want this to be quite a nice clean selection. And I'm not really doing anything crazy here, I'm just using the left mouse button to click and drag out an area, and then when I want to move the camera I'm just holding down the spacebar and clicking and dragging around. That allows me to move the area freely. Do that. And then when I come to an area like this where I have a sharp corner, what I'm going to do is grab one of these anchor points here by holding down the Alt button and then clicking and moving it down. And then this will allow me to get a nice corner on that. So I'm just going to speed up the rest of the bit now while I select the rest of this object. Okay then, so now with that selected, you can see here I didn't go right up to the edge here, I left quite a bit of gap here, and this is just to showcase that you don't have to be too accurate with your cutting out because of what we're going to do next. So with the selection made and the pen tool still active, what you're going to have to do next is right click on the image, hit make selection, and then make sure your feather radius is 0.2. I found that this is quite a nice little sweet spot. Make sure anti-alias is turned on, new selection, OK. And this is going to select the object. So what we need to do next is press Ctrl, Shift and I to invert the selection, hit delete, and then this is going to get rid of the background. So you can see now we're just left with the shirt. So one thing we have to correct first is the collar, and this is something you have to pay attention of when you're planning out your product photography, because we can't see it, the mannequin. We have to take a picture of it. So this is what I've done here. Let me just rotate this around. And we'll do the same here. We'll unlock the background layer. We'll get the pen tool out. And again, you don't have to be too accurate with this, because not much of this collar is going to be seen. Same thing, just use the left mouse button to click and drag out the anchor points, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to right click, make selection, same settings, Control Shift I, delete, and then we're going to bring that down and bring it back into our main image. And then I'm going to press Control T to transform and put it roughly in the right position of where it should be, on the back of the garment. I'm going to move it down behind our shirt layer. Control T again to transform, to rotate. And then another thing I'm going to do is go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and this will give us just a little bit of extra control to get the points exactly where we want them, so it looks pretty close to bang on. So what you might have noticed is this guy's looking a bit stretched now. Isn't looking too uniform in his appearance. So I'm going to select both layers by holding down Shift and clicking the other layer. go to layer, merge layers, and then I'm going to go to filter and then liquify, and this is what's going to really bring it together. So we're going to make sure we got a nice big brush selected here, density around about 50, pressure full, and then we're just going to make sure we've got the forward warp tool selected, and we're just going to pull everything in slightly. Remember that you want to do small steps with this, you don't want to do big strokes, otherwise you could end up with something like that, which isn't good. So you see, you want to bring the collar over a little bit, you need to bring it all the way over, bring the shoulders down. And you can see here that these two arms aren't really lining up correctly, so what we need to do with that is we could pull up this arm here, but it's going to pull up the rest of the garment. So first we need to freeze the rest of the image. So go over here to the freeze mask tool, make the brush nice and big, and we're going to paint in all the areas that we don't want to move. Zoom in here by holding down Alt and using the mouse wheel to scroll in and out. And make the brush a little bit smaller. And then we're going to get this tool again, the forward warp tool. Make our brush a little bit smaller, and we're just going to move this shoulder up. See here, we need to thaw out this area a little bit. And we're going to do that again. And we can see that's pretty much in line now. Use the thaw mask tool. And you can see now that it's all starting to come together slowly. So I'm happy with that, with how that looks. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to apply the changes, and these will be permanent changes. So just be wary of that. Now, one thing I'd like to do next is just do the image, trim, transparent pixels, and then what I'd highly recommend is to just save this out as a PNG file, so you've always got the original image there as a backup in case you want to go back to it for whatever reason. So next we're going to turn this into a nice little social media post, just to really push this thing a little bit further. So we're going to make a new document, file, new, and it's going to be 1080 by 1080 because this is going to go onto Instagram. Hit create, take our layer, drag and drop him in, hit Control T to transform, and we're going to make him a nice little size there, and we're going to hit Control A, make sure he's centered up, which he seems to be, and then we're going to add a nice little background gradient to it. So we're going to get our gradient tool out, select a nice garment color. It's always good to swatch the color from the garment or the object itself, so you're getting something that's similar to what the actual product is, without having to try to guess what the color is. And then we'll have another color, which would be a nice darker one. Kinda like the look of that. Hit OK, OK. Hit dither. And we'll make this into a nice radial gradient, and we'll make the scale of it bump up just a little bit. So as you can see, we're starting to get there. Nearly getting there. We just need a bit more contrast because he's starting to get a bit washed out with the background that we've just created. So to do that, we're going to right click on our layer, go blending options, and we're just going to add a nice little drop shadow to it. And we're just going to play around with it just so it looks right. You don't want anything too crazy here, just something nice and subtle. So you can always add more on top of it if you need to. But that looks good now. So we'll just hit OK for that. And what we're going to do is make him a little bit smaller. We now need to add that two-toned effect that we saw in the original image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control R to bring up our rulers. And I'm just going to drag them out. And what this is going to allow me to do is to just snap at the edges of the document without going over the edges. And it's to make sure that I get right up into that corner there. So I'm going to grab our polygon lasso tool. Like that. And as you can see, it's just snapping to the edges for me. So I don't have to worry about getting it exactly in the corner. It's snapping there for me. And like there, click in that corner, and click in that corner. And I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to select a nice solid color, which I'm going to turn to a nice black. You can see that already adds a ton of contrast and really makes the whole image pop. So just to finish this up now, what we're going to do is add just a little bit of promotional text. Shirt reveal. I'm just using the text tool and just moving it around, just making it look nice. So just make that a little bit bold. Change the color to a nice yellow, bit more contrast. Oh, missed one there. Make sure it's nice and centered, the way Control A, center, which it seems to be. Same thing with the product. There we go, they're all nice and centered up. And there we have it. Now, one thing I like to do to finish product images, and this will really make it pop, is if we zoom in here, we can see that we've got a bit of blurring going on here. It doesn't look as sharp, and this will show up in the final image when you see it on a mobile device or on your PC screen. So one thing to fix this is if we just did Control J on this layer here, it'll make a copy of it, and we turn the drop shadow off. We can go to Filter, Sharpen, and don't use the normal Sharpen because that's a bit too aggressive. What we're going to do here is use Smart Sharpen. That's going to take all these details and just make them pop. Just make sure it's set to 150%, 1 pixel, reduce noise by 10%, and Gaussian blur. So we can see just by turning this on and off just how much of a difference this is making, especially in these areas. And there we have it. Turn that off, and that's it. Another thing I like to do as well is to just make another solid color, black, put a filter, noise, add noise, rasterize, 7% is fine, Gaussian, monochromatic. And just change this to linear dodge add, and just reduce the opacity a bit. Just finish this up. Just make sure it's behind the product images, because if it's over the product image, it might look a little bit weird then. And that's the end of that. That's the finished piece. And that's how you elevate a sort of messy product image and you turn it into something which then you can sell and showcase on social media. So thank you for listening and watching. Hope you enjoyed, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.